Hi everyone, welcome to the Quantitative Research Methods lecture. This is one of the subjects for the final year students in Statistics Study Program, Department of Mathematics, University of Indonesia. So what are we doing in this lecture? Actually, we've done almost all of the process that need to be done for the research. Now we are at the end of that process. So just to remind you that we've done determining the topic at the first sessions of our lecture, and then developing research questions and objectives. We also done that. Conducting the literature reviews, you've done that, and you've submitted your assignments regarding this uh, process. Designing the methodology, we've learned about how to develop a good questionnaire and how to design your sampling scheme to deliver the questionnaire or to collect your data. And also conducting the field work, it is assumed that we've done that because I mean that due to our condition right now, that we all should be staying at home because of the COVID-19 situation. We can't really do the field work to collect the primary data. So as a substitution, you might collect your data through the online databases, or if you have like access to some sources of data, you can just have like secondary data for your research. And then you've also done your data processing and analysis. So then this is the last bit of our lecture, that is presenting your results, okay? And based on our agreement in the first part of our lecture, that the outcome of this subject is that in the form of a final project or final report, and that final report is in the form of like paper draft, right? So now we will just proceed on your paper draft. In the previous session, I already um, uh, taught you about collaborative writing in Overleaf platform. So here, in here, I've got some of your projects. And seems like, yeah, there are many variations on the template that you chose for your writing, and I'm happy with all of that. And then so this is all that I've got for this class. So if you think that you already sent me the link or already shared your project with me but it's not in this list, please let me know, and then we'll find out what happened to your project. Okay, so then I've have a brief look in all these draft that you put here, and then it seems like there are still some confusions in what is expected from your final report. So I just show you the expectations of this report, okay, just a simple template. I just take the one from group of Anthony, Danny and Henry, that one that I've written some comments on, and they just they chose the IEEE template. That's a really nice one actually. But again, you don't have to choose this template. Remember, when you want to write your research report and then you are aiming to submit into kind of like a journal or like a conference for publication, then it is really recommended before writing it you look at the template of the aiming journal or the aiming conference, because usually different journals, different conferences, they have kind of like different template of writing and different style of writing. So that's why instead of writing it and changing it again later, it's better for you to look at the to learn the template first. Okay, so for this example, Okay, they choose the topic of fraud consumers in e-commerce. So here are some comments that I've written of them that I think that although the scheme or the templates might be different, whatever the template that you choose, but basically the comments, what is it? The content that is expected is the same. Okay, so you need to write the title. Don't worry if you can't fix the title yet. Okay, until you finish your writing, you can still change your title, and then get the name of the author and so on. Okay, now for your report, you need to put in an abstract. Okay, so what is abstract? Abstract is kind of like people don't have to go through all the detail of your writing to get to know your work. Okay, they can just read get the information from your abstract. So in order to get that information, then what you need to write in the abstract is that it's just in a brief writing, just one or two sentences for each. You need to write the background of the research, the aim or the objectives of your research, the proposed method, the data used if applies, and highlights of the results. Why I put the data used here as an optional? Because in statistics that our research usually related with data. We deal a lot with data analysis and modeling and that kind of things. That's why we need to write explanation about our data. But sometimes in maths or even in theoretical statistics, you might just want to, kind of like develop new formulas or proving some formulas. In that case, you might not need to use some data. Instead, you probably just want to do some simulations just to illustrate the way the method works. Okay, so you don't have to describe about the data in that case. And also for the results, it's just the highlight. What I mean by highlight here is just some important results. You don't need to list all the results in detail in here. Just pick some important, outstanding results, okay, or some remarks on the result. So just a brief one in here, okay, in the abstract. That's all what you need to write in your abstract. So it might not, it's just like one or two paragraphs, but not more than that. Okay, so after the abstract, we need to write the keywords. Okay, the things that usually people forget about writing the keywords is that first it should be written in an alphabetical order. Okay, and then you don't write terms that you already used in the title in the keywords. For example, here, okay, the title of this report is that, where is it? Um, okay, fraud consumers in e-commerce. Okay, so then you can't put like fraud or consumers or e-commerce. You can't no longer put that terms in your keywords. Instead, you have to think of some other words that kind of like really represent your research. Okay, I found out that this website here is really good in explaining about keywords. Okay, I strongly recommend you to have a look at this website and read about it. Okay, so then we go back to here after the abstract. Okay, now the first section is about the introduction. So in here I think that we have four main sections. The first one is the introduction, and then the next one is about data and methods, and then the third section is about the result, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, the results. The fourth section is about the discussion. This is usually forgotten by some of the, sometimes it doesn't always presented in some publications, but I think this is really important to put the discussion section in your report. And the last one, the closing one, is the conclusion and recommendation. Okay, so then from those sections, what are expected to be the content of each of the section? Okay, so for the introduction here, you need to briefly describe about the problem that you want to investigate in your research. Okay, the preliminary data, if it applies, okay, it means that not all research have the preliminary data. Okay, so if your research doesn't have it, then it's okay. You don't have to force yourself to write about it. Okay, usually the preliminary data can be used as a motivation of why you do this research. Okay, for example, like in some of my students that I supervise for his final project, um, his research is about handling imbalanced data in classification using easy ensemble methods. And then, so as a motivation, he tried to, because he said that imbalanced data kind of like will create some problems in the result of your classification if you don't handle it. Okay, and then as a way to explain it, okay, so he just did some kind of like preliminary data analysis, that is by doing some simulations to visualize or to illustrate the problem exists with the imbalanced data. Okay, so but for some other research, you might not need to do this kind of things. Okay, you also need to write the background for this section. Okay, so what is the difference between the background and the introduction? In some paper, in some journals, they kind of like differentiate between the introduction and the background. In some other publications, they just put it in one section. Okay, doesn't really differentiate between introduction and the background. In this report, I prefer to do the last option, that is just we put in the one section, that is introduction section, but it consists of the background. So what is it? Shortly speaking, background is just the result of your literature review. Okay, so it discusses the previous and relevant research in an elaborated manner. It is not just a summary. Okay, I still found some of your works on the literature review is just kind of like summarizing some papers that you've read, but it's not that. As we discussed in class, it should be consisting of your critical review. Okay, what does it mean by the critical review is that you need to analyze the pluses and the minuses of both publications in relation to the topic that you propose. Okay, and as a result, you get the gap, and filling that gap will be your research objective and will be your contribution to the related topic once you conducted your research. Okay, um, so the background is basically your literature review. It produces the gap that leads to the research questions and statement of research aim and objective. And again, I found out here from Enago website. This is a really good website that helps us in writing our research results. Okay, I strongly recommend you to go visit this website and read about the topics in here to help you refine your writing. Okay. Um, so then that's about the first section, introduction, what is expected for you to fill in that section. Now we move on to the second section, that is about data and methods. So in here, because we are in statistics, okay, again, although it's not always like that, but mostly our research is we deal a lot with data. And so that's why in here we have our, I prefer to have like data section in a separate what is it space with the method section. Okay, so what is expected to the data in the data section? Of course, you don't have to put all your data here. It doesn't make sense to do that. You just need to summarize, okay, explain brief, again in brief about your data. Okay, some important information about your data. For example, the sample size. So you can just say a total data on something something observations on, for example, like on patients, Parkinson's patients, Parkinson's disease patients were used in this study, for example, like that, or total data on something something observations on customer satisfaction survey in Jakarta were used in this study, something like that. And then also we also need an explanation whether your data is primary or secondary data, and if it is primary data, how did you collect that data? It is also, we also need you to explain it. Okay, for example, collected based on a questionnaire consisting of something something questions. And of course here we don't want you to list all the questions. Again, it doesn't make sense to do that. What you need to do is kind of like just give a general explanation about the questions. For example, like the first set of questions consisting of 12 questions about socio-demographics condition, and the rest of the questions are measuring their respondents' opinion on ABC issues, for example, something like that. Okay, and then how you collect the data, whether the questionnaires are distributed online or through email or through some kind of platforms. And also we need the explanation on when is the data collected. Okay, so why we need to have this kind of information? Actually later, for example, in the discussion sections, let's say you want to do like uh, research about the behavior of football fans. Okay, for like big what is it, football club in Indonesia, for example, like that. I think that if you do the survey on the like in the period of where the competition is ongoing, I think probably the response of the fans might be probably different compared to if you do the survey when there is no competition. Because when the competition is on, I think that they'll, kind of like the psychological, what is it? The psychological conditions of the fans probably different, so that's why we need the period of collecting the data to be stated in your report. Okay, the same thing actually, if you take your data online, okay, or secondary data, then you need to refer, or you need to cite the source of your data. Even if for the online database, you also need to like put in when did you download the data. Okay, because sometimes in this case, some online databases, the data are, they keep updating their data. So there is a possibility that the data that they have last year or last month is already, different with the data that they have this month. Okay, so if you do your analysis based on last month's data, probably the result will be different if you do the analysis based on the data per today. So So one way to explain the differences is that, probably the source of differences is because the data set is already changing. Okay, and that's why you need to write when you get the data. Okay, so that's basically what we need you to write on the data section. And then for the method section, because we are in statistics, of course, it is a statistical methods. So again, in this section, you need to explain the methods that you used in your research. Okay. If more than one methods are implemented, then you might need to describe them in different sections. So for example, you have two methods, so probably you have to have two subsections here for methods 1 and for method 2. Okay, again, you don't need to have all detailed explanation about the methods. No, you just need to write a brief explanation about the methods, okay, in a succinct way. Okay, so you might put the formulas or the models that you use, or if there's consisting of some simulations or some programming, so probably you need to put in your algorithms here. If in the implementation you use some packages or software, you also need to describe it and you need to cite that reference. Okay, so for example, if we implement the cart method using R-part package, then you need to cite that R package, the R software, and also the R-part package. Okay, so how to do the citation of R package, for example? So let's say here, okay, so here if we do the citation, then okay, this is how R wants us to cite their work. If you write using latex, you can do this, but then if you have it in the publications, it's usually like this. Okay, so you just need to copy this and then you go back to your writing here and then we put it down here in the reference section. So for example here I will just write, okay, so here with item and then let's say I just put B000 here and then I put it like this. Okay, but then you also need to check whether the referencing system that's put here in R is consistent with the one that you have in the template. I mean that just look at here the other references that we have here. Okay, it's kind of like, okay, we start with the name and then the title and then blah 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 and here at the end, while this one is not like that. So then you just need to do some a little bit changing, okay, a little bit adjustment to that, and then off you go with that one. And then to do the citation here, okay, because I signed it as B000, so up here you also need to write it as, where is it? Where were we? La 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 la, here, then using in RB 000, okay. So we will have other section on this referencing and citation. Okay, so don't really bother about it at this moment. What I want to emphasize from here is that you use the package because this is open source package that we are using. So we need to acknowledge those people who are contributing in developing these packages. So that's why we need to cite their works here. Okay. So that's about the method. So not a detailed one. Okay. Now about the results. Okay. In this section, it is expected that you write your results. Again, you don't need to put in every outputs that you get in your data processing. Okay. You just pick up the important one. Okay, the informative one, okay? And what you need to write is, I don't want to see a list of, all kind of tables and that sort of things. Probably you need to create your own table to make the result like in a more efficient way of presenting your result. Okay, and then I need your interpretation here. And you need to highlight the interesting findings, which means that, for example, if you have like 10, for example, you do regression with 10 variables, and then I don't need you to comment on each one of the variables effect. You just need to highlight which one is the most important, how does it affect the response variable, which one seems to be not really contributing to explain the response variable. That's all. Okay, so no need to explain each one of the factors or the variables that included in your model. Okay, and do not mix the interpretation with your opinion. Okay, so whatever you think it is, just keep it at this moment. Just write, just do the interpretation objectively based on the result that you obtain. Okay, and then in writing the results, I'd like it for you to write it into two parts, okay? The descriptive part and the main analysis part here, okay? So for the descriptive part here, um, some people don't do that, but I think that it would be nice if we can do this because um it's just like, you have a data and then tada, you just do your data. For example, like you proceed to the classification and then you just talk about the classification without even introducing or on what kind of people, on what kind of subjects that we are doing that analysis. Okay, so at least you need to help your readers to understand, okay, we are working on this and this and this kind of subjects, they have this kind of characteristics, and then for this kind of people, this is the result of my analysis. Okay, now the what is it, the place where you write that this kind of people or these characteristics of your data, it should be in the descriptive section where it contains like probably a summary table on if your variable is qualitative or categorical, just okay, the countings of number of subjects in each of the level of the category, or if it is a numerical variable, probably a box plot or a mean and standard deviation for each of the measurements, something like that. So by looking at the descriptive, actually it kind of like, help you or helps the reader to understand. Also, I guess this variable later on will come out as an important variable in the next analysis. Or if it's like this, if the box plots of these variables for two categories in the response variable, if the box plots not really different, or I think that later on in the classification this variable will not come out as the a good splitting variable, for example, like that. Okay, so it gives us kind of like it guides us to have a feeling of what the results should be. And here is the main result. In here, I write about the classification result because, previously I just wrote about card, R part, and that kind is in classification. Okay, but here it can be, so whatever the analysis that you have, probably the regression, probably clustering, probably, kind of like market basket analysis or whatever analysis that you put in. Okay, so here you put your main results. Okay, now for the discussion session, it is that, okay, remember that I told you don't mix your interpretation with your opinion here. So if you have something, if you want to question the result, then you can put it here in the discussion. Okay, for example, you expect the results should be like A, B, C, but instead you get the result is like C, D, E. So there's something, probably there's something wrong, or you are really sure that you already proceed in a verified what is it manner, but you still get like kinda like strange results. So in this section you need to do your analysis on why or what factors that probably affecting uh, so that you get that kind of result. Okay, so having result that is not as you have been expecting before is fine. Okay, so having like, okay, the result is not good. I mean that, for example, like, oh, this variable turns out to be not a good explanatory for that variable. It's okay to have that result. Okay, because you still do your analysis here. You can just kind of like put on, okay, why I got the non significant result. You compare it probably with the previous similar research, and then, oh, okay, probably because the difference in the data that I use, or probably because of the sample size, or probably because of the problem of missing values, and so I recommend next in the future research you have to handle the missing values, something like that. Or probably also if your result here is kind of like confirming the result of other previous research, similar research that you've read out there, then you just write it. Okay, so just say like, just write like, okay, so the result of this study is in line or confirms the what is it? The work that had been conducted by, for example, um, uh, A, B, C, and R, for example, like that. And then here you put your reference. Okay, and then still you can't just say like this, and then you also need to kind of like, okay, in what way your work is the same with their works, and then you also need to put your analysis why, probably why that thing happens. Okay, so that's in the discussion session. And then for the conclusion and recommendation, again here just write, uh, basically conclusion is just, restatement, okay? Restatement of the objective of the research. Okay, that's basically what the conclusion. Okay, so you can't come up with something new out of the blue from the previous what is it, discussion in the previous sections. Okay, so and you can't rewrite the results, rewrite what you've written in the results section. Okay, I've seen some of your work just rewrite the results in a detailed manner, put the numbers and blah 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 blah. No, that thing is not expected in the conclusion. Okay, that detailed result, people can just go back to this section to look at the detailed one. Okay, for the recommendation, it can be like what can be done in the future for future like research that might be, there are still something that can be improved from this research, for example, on the methods, or on the, what is it, on the methods. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for the internet connection. So, for the recommendation, it can be like what is it? What can be done to improve this research? For example, you haven't handled the missing values or like the imbalanced data or kind of like the higher order terms or you know in related to the methods, you can put recommendation for that or like recommendation if it is an applied research you can put like recommendation regarding the context of the problem um, that you analyze. For example, like if you do kind of like analysis on breast cancer patients, for example, then you can put like and you have identified some factors that related to the relapse of the cancer, for example. So then you can just highlight that factors and then recommend to the clinicians or to the health practices out there that these factors are having a significant contribution in explaining the relapse, so then they can just do some interventions to delay the relapse, probably. Okay, something like that. Okay, so basically that's what you need to put in your report. And about the what is it, the mechanics of writing, you can just, I think that whatever the template that you choose, um, they already provided it in terms of writing the equations, inserting tables and pictures. Okay, you always have Google. Okay, so you can just do, for example, how to write math equation in LaTeX, because here Overleaf he is based on on a LaTeX. Okay, on then, or for example, how to insert picture in LaTeX, or you can just see there's, I mean that if you have problems in the mechanics of writing in Overleaf, remember this is not something new. Okay, lots of people out there have done this kind of things similar with what we are doing now. So it means that there are lots of people out there having the same problem with you. Lots of people out there already put on their problems, and there are like um, lots of people also help to willing to help. So it's just a matter of whether you want to do your search or not about doing it. But again, if you still have some problems with the writing techniques, you can always let me know, and then we can just figure it out. Okay. Okay, so I think probably this thing here is not really nice, right? To be looked at. So if you want to see the result of what we're doing here, you can just always save it, and of course it will just compile, or you can just click on this, the recompile. What is it? The recompile. Yeah. Okay. So here is the what is it? The result. Okay. The way we get the result of what we've written before. Okay, so as you can see, I don't expect like 20, 30 pages. No, not like that. Probably just between 8 to 12, or yeah, maximum 15 or 17 pages is okay. Okay, and if you put in like appendix for the, for example, the questionnaires, if you're using questionnaire, then it can be uh, what is it, more than that. Okay, so I think that's all. And then here you can just see the history of what we've done to this what is it, what we've done to this draft here. So yep, so that's all for this session. So I expect you to again rewrite what you have here, and then for the next session, I'll provide the videos on doing the referencing and citation. That's all for today. Thank you.